At dinner with my son, my phone suddenly buzzed. The message on the screen froze my heart. It said, "Leave now and say nothing to your boy." I stared at the words, confused and afraid. Why would someone send me such a warning? And why tonight, when I was finally trying to share a peaceful meal with my son? My hands shook, but I forced a smile so he wouldn't notice. Inside though, fear was burning. I didn't know if it was a threat, a trap, or a secret I wasn't supposed to uncover. But one thing was certain, my life was about to change forever. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. That night, the warning became the first step into a storm I never expected. I wanted everything about that night to feel special. After all the pain, the distance and the silence, I finally had a chance to sit with my son Marcus. I booked a small quiet restaurant, the kind with soft lights, slow music, and no noise from the outside world. Just a place where a father and his boy could breathe and talk again. Marcus walked in, taller than I remembered, his shoulders carrying a weight no teenager should have to carry. He smiled politely when he saw me, but it wasn't the smile I used to know. It was guarded. Careful, like he didn't want to give me too much. I can't blame him. Ever since Sheila divorced me and married Harvey, Marcus has been caught in the middle of a war he never asked for. Lawyers. Courtrooms. Whispered arguments in hallways. I fought so hard not to lose him, but in many ways I already had. That's why this dinner mattered. This was my chance to remind him who I am, his father Ray Calder, not the villain his mother and Harvey painted me to be. We ordered food, but for me it wasn't about the meal, it was about the conversation. I started small, asking about school, his classes, if he was still drawing in his sketchbook. He answered politely, with short sentences, eyes darting to his phone now and then. But I wasn't going to give up. So I reached for something deeper, memories. Remember those fishing trips? I asked, smiling. The mornings by the lake, you'd complain about the worms, but you always begged me to let you reel in the catch. For the first time all evening, his lips twitched into something real. A faint smile, a flash of the boy I used to know. My heart lifted. Maybe, just maybe, I could rebuild what was broken. I leaned in, holding on to that moment. You were always better at it than me, Marcus. I never told you that, but you had the patience I didn't. He looked down at his plate, hiding the smile, but I saw it. That tiny spark gave me hope. And then my phone buzzed, loud, sharp. Cutting through the fragile peace of that dinner, I pulled it from my pocket, expecting maybe a call from work or Thomas checking in. But it wasn't that. It was a message from an unknown number. The words made my stomach turn cold. Leave now, say nothing to your boy. My hand froze around the phone, my throat tightened. I read it again, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. No, it was real. The letters glared back at me, like a warning shot aimed straight at my chest. I glanced at Marcus, who was busy cutting his food. Innocent, unaware. He didn't see the message, thank God. But my mind started racing. Who sent this? Why now? And what did they mean by say nothing? Say nothing about what? For a second I thought about slipping the phone back into my pocket and pretending it never happened. After all, this was supposed to be our night. A fresh start, but my hands trembled. My chest pounded. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. That someone knew I was here with him, trying to bridge the gap, and they wanted to tear it apart. I kept staring at that screen. Leave now. The words felt like a command, a threat. I looked at my son again. His face was calm but distant. How much did he already know? How much had Sheila and Harvey told him about me? And if I ignored this warning, what truth was waiting to come crashing down on us? The fork in my hand slipped against the plate, making a sharp sound. Marcus looked up. Dad, you okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, I'm fine. But I wasn't. I wasn't fine at all. Inside I was fighting a war. Do I tell him about the message? Do I protect him from whatever storm is coming? Or do I risk losing him forever by staying silent? I sat there frozen, the phone burning in my hand, knowing one thing for sure: this dinner was no longer just about reconnecting with my son. It had just become the beginning of something darker, something dangerous, and I had no idea what would come next. My hands were still trembling from that first message. The words wouldn't leave my head. Leave now. Say nothing to your boy. I couldn't sit there calmly anymore. I pushed my chair back slowly and said, "Excuse me, Marcus, I'll be right back." He nodded though. I could see a flicker of confusion in his eyes. I walked toward the restroom, my phone clutched tight in my hand, as if I was carrying a bomb that could go off any second. Inside, I leaned against the sink, staring at my reflection. My face looked pale, older than I remembered. My thoughts went straight to Harvey, Sheila's new husband, the man who stole my wife, poisoned my son, and laughed while the court stripped me of dignity. This had his fingerprints all over it. The timing, the cruelty. It was the kind of twisted move Harvey loved, messing with my head right when I was trying to put the pieces back together. I closed my eyes, and flashes of the past hit me. The courtroom, Harvey in his expensive suit, smirking at every word my lawyer said. Sheila sitting next to him, her hand resting proudly on his arm, while I sat alone. And Marcus, my boy, pulled between us like a rope in a cruel game of tug-of-war. Those battles had scarred me. Harvey had money, influence, friends in all the right places. And he used every weapon to humiliate me, to paint me as a failure, a father unfit for his own child. And now, here I was again, haunted by him, even at this dinner. I splashed water on my face, forcing myself to breathe. Maybe I was overthinking it, maybe this message wasn't from him. But deep down, I knew. This was Harvey's style. He wanted me rattled. He wanted me broken. When I walked back to the table, Marcus was waiting. He looked at me with concern. "Dad, is something wrong?" I forced a smile, swallowing the storm inside me. "No, son, just work. Nothing important." He studied me for a second longer, like he wanted to press, but then he nodded and looked back down at his phone. I hated lying to him, but how could I tell him? How could I show him that someone wanted me to leave? That someone thought he was about to discover some horrible truth? The waiter arrived, setting down our plates. The food looked good, but I couldn't taste a thing. My stomach was twisted into knots. I pushed the food around with my fork, pretending to eat, while my mind spun in circles. What truth? What could Harvey possibly use against me now? I've made mistakes, sure, but I loved my son. That was the one thing I never failed at. Just as I tried to calm myself, my phone buzzed again. Another message. "If you stay, he'll know the truth tonight." My blood ran cold. I gripped the phone so tightly, my knuckles turned white. My chest felt heavy, as if the air itself had thickened. I glanced at Marcus. He was chewing slowly, lost in thought, but every once in a while, his eyes flicked up at me. Guilt, suspicion, something was already brewing in his mind. And then I realized what the sender meant. This wasn't just a warning, this was a countdown. If I didn't walk away, if I didn't leave that restaurant, then Marcus was going to learn something that would change everything. But what truth, what secret could be so damaging that they were desperate to stop me from staying? I tried to steady my breathing, but inside I was shaking. The floor under me felt unstable. I put the phone down face first on the table, afraid Marcus might catch a glimpse. My heart pounded as I told myself to act normal. Smile, keep talking. Pretend everything is fine, but the truth was I was terrified. Terrified not of what they might do to me, but of what Marcus might discover about me. And in that moment, one thought echoed louder than all the rest. If Harvey has twisted the truth, if Marcus believes him, I could lose my son forever. I slipped the phone into my pocket, but not before saving the number. Whoever was sending those threats, I needed to know. Later tonight, I'd find out who it was. I had a strong feeling already, but I wanted proof. When I looked back across the table, I noticed something. Marcus had his own phone out, hidden low under the table, his fingers moving quickly. He kept sneaking glances at me while typing. His face looked troubled, almost guilty. A chill ran through me. Was he part of this? Did he know who was sending those messages? I tried to push the thought away. He's my son, my boy. But the way he kept avoiding my eyes made my chest tighten. The warmth we had just moments ago, the smile when I mentioned fishing, was gone. In its place was silence, heavy, uncomfortable. It sat between us like a wall. I couldn't break through. I forced a smile and leaned forward. "Marcus," I said gently, "can I ask you something?" He looked up, his eyes sharp and cautious. "What? Did she say anything before tonight? About me? About this dinner?" Marcus hesitated. He set his phone face down on the table and shifted in his seat. His shoulders tensed. He was holding something back. I could see it. Finally he muttered, almost under his breath, "Harvey just said not to believe everything Dad says." The words cut through me like a knife. I stared at him, my chest burning. Harvey. Always Harvey. Poisoning my son against me, even here, even now. He couldn't let me have a single moment alone with Marcus without planting seeds of doubt. I forced my voice to stay calm. "And what do you think about that, son?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He picked up his fork, poked at his food, then finally whispered, "I don't know." Those 3 words shattered me. This wasn't just about Harvey talking to Sheila. This was direct, personal. Harvey was in Marcus's ear, twisting his mind in real time. He was pulling the strings, making me look like the liar, the dangerous one, the untrustworthy father. I clenched my fists under the table. Every part of me wanted to shout, to tell Marcus exactly what Harvey was: an opportunist, a manipulator, a man who cared more about control than love. But I couldn't. Not here. Not like this. If I lashed out, Marcus would only believe Harvey more. That was his trap. So I sat there, swallowing my anger, forcing my hands to unclench. I tried to steady my voice. "Marcus, I just want you to know something. Whatever anyone tells you, I've never lied to you. I've never stopped caring, and I never will." He lifted his eyes to mine for a second. I saw the conflict there. Guilt, confusion, love mixed with doubt. It was like he was caught in a storm, unsure which direction to turn. The silence grew heavier. My phone in my pocket felt like a ticking bomb. I thought about those messages again. "If you stay, he'll know the truth tonight." Was Harvey planning something bigger, some kind of reveal? Or was this just part of his twisted game, using Marcus as the weapon to break me down? I watched my son, the way his jaw tightened, the way his fingers tapped nervously on the table. He was struggling. Harvey's poison was already inside him, and I was running out of time to stop it. In that moment, one thing became painfully clear. This dinner wasn't about food, or even about rebuilding trust. It was a battlefield. Harvey was attacking me, without even being in the room. And the soldier standing across from me, the one being forced to choose sides, was my own son. I sat back, heart pounding, knowing I couldn't let Harvey win. Not this time, not with Marcus. But as I gripped the phone in my pocket, one terrifying thought echoed in my head. What truth was Harvey planning to reveal? And would Marcus believe him over me? Dinner ended with silence, the kind of silence that eats at you long after you leave the table. Marcus pushed his chair back, his eyes low, his voice flat. "Thanks, Dad." I forced a smile. "Of course, son, anytime." We walked together out to the parking lot. The night air was cool, but my chest burned. I wanted to grab his shoulder, look him in the eye and tell him everything, tell him how Harvey was twisting the truth. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I kept my face calm, pretending nothing was wrong, pretending that dinner hadn't been ruined by lies and poison, pretending that my heart wasn't breaking with every step. We reached his car. Marcus hesitated for a second, as if he wanted to say something more, but then he shook his head and muttered, "Good night." "Good night, Marcus," I whispered back. I stood there as he slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove away. The red glow of his taillights faded into the distance, and with it, I felt the space between us grow wider. It wasn't just miles. It was trust. It was love. It was the bond. Harvey was trying to snap in two. When the silence of the lot swallowed me whole, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in months. Thomas Greer, my old lawyer. My only friend who had stood by me during those brutal court battles. He answered on the third ring. "Ray? It's been a while." "Thomas," I said, my voice tight, "I need your advice. Something's happening." I explained the messages, the threats, the way Marcus looked at me tonight, like he didn't know who I was anymore. Thomas didn't sound surprised. He sighed heavily. Ray, if Harvey's behind this, you need to be careful. That man has money, influence, friends in every corner. He doesn't just fight you head on. He plays dirty, always has. I gripped the phone tighter. He's stealing my son from me, Thomas. First my wife, then my reputation. And now Marcus. I can't let him win again. Ray, Thomas warned, don't underestimate him. Harvey controls the story, and once he controls the story, he controls the people who believe it. Those words lit a fire inside me. Harvey had humiliated me once, but this time he was using Marcus as his weapon, and that I couldn't forgive. My voice shook, but not from fear, from anger. Then I need the truth, Thomas. I need to know who's sending these messages. I can't fight shadows anymore. After hanging up, I sat in my car, alone with my thoughts. I pulled up the number that had sent the texts. My fingers moved fast, running a quick search, desperate for any clue, and then I found it. My stomach dropped as the name flashed on the screen. Clara Barnes. The phone slipped from my hand onto the passenger seat. Clara wasn't just some random person, she was connected. I knew her name. I knew what it meant. This wasn't just a warning anymore. This was something bigger, something tangled in the past I thought was buried. I leaned back against the seat, my heart racing. Harvey had stolen so much already, but if Clara Barnes was involved, then the truth he was hiding might be darker than I ever imagined. And I made myself a promise right then. No matter what it took, no matter how dangerous it got, I would uncover the truth. Because if I didn't, I was going to lose my son forever. I drove to the small cafe Clara had agreed to meet me at. The streets were quiet, but my mind was anything but. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white, heart hammering. Each red light felt like an eternity, every passing car a reminder that time was slipping away. I didn't know if I was ready to face the truth, but I had to. Marcus's life, our bond, everything was on the line. When I pushed open the cafe door, Clara was already there, sitting alone in a corner booth. She looked smaller than I remembered, slouched over, her shoulders tense, her fingers tapped nervously on the tabletop, a rapid, uneven rhythm that made my stomach tighten. Her eyes flitted around the room, never settling, as if she expected someone to jump out at her at any moment. Clara, I said softly as I slid into the seat across from her. Thank you for meeting me. I know this isn't easy. She swallowed hard, a dry rattling sound, and shook her head. I didn't want to, Ray. You don't understand. Harvey, he's dangerous. I leaned forward, voice calm but firm. I don't care what he can do. Marcus is my son. I can't let anyone twist him against me. Not even Harvey. You know that, right? Clara flinched, and I saw the fear in her eyes, raw and undeniable. You don't understand. He made me do it. All the messages, the warnings. I didn't want to. I was scared. My chest tightened. Harvey had forced his own daughter to manipulate me, to try to turn Marcus against me. The betrayal hit harder than anything I'd felt in years. Clara, I said, voice softening, trying to reach her. Why? Why would he drag you into this? She bit her lips so hard I thought she might draw blood. Her eyes finally met mine, wide, haunted. He heaps secrets, about Marcus, things you don't know. Things if you find out, it could destroy everything. You, Marcus, even your life. I swallowed, fighting the urge to shake her. I need to know, Clara. I have to know. This isn't about anger, it's about Marcus. You're the only one who can help me now. She looked down, trembling, and tears threatened to spill. I can't, Ray. I could lose everything if he finds out I talked to you. He'll ruin you. He'll ruin Marcus. Please, just leave it. Walk away. My hand slammed down on the table, startling her. No, Clara, I've already lost too much. I won't walk away. Not now, not ever. Marcus's life, his trust, it's too important. You're going to tell me what Harvey is hiding, one way or another. She recoiled, eyes wide, panic written all over her face. Ray, Before she could finish, she jumped from her seat, clutching her bag like a lifeline. She bolted toward the door, practically tripping over her own feet. Clara, I shouted, rising to follow her, but she didn't stop. My chest pounded as I watched her disappear into the street, swallowed by the night. Then I noticed something on the table, a small slip of paper. My heart skipped a beat as I bent down and picked it up. On it, neat, precise handwriting, Harvey's handwriting, an address. I stared at it, my mind racing. A storage unit, a location I'd never been to. This could be the key, the first real lead in weeks. I could feel the weight of it in my hands, a tangible piece of the puzzle Harvey had tried so hard to keep hidden. Clara had fled, leaving questions, fear, and danger in her wake, but also hope. This address was my chance. I could almost taste the truth, close enough to reach out and grab it. I sat back, chest heaving, heart still racing. The cafe felt too small, the air too thick, my thoughts too loud. The danger was real, the stakes higher than ever. But for the first time, I felt a spark of hope, something tangible, something I could act on. I whispered to myself, quiet but resolute, this ends tonight. One way or another, Marcus will know the truth. And with that, I tucked the paper into my pocket, determined, ready, and more prepared than ever to face whatever Harvey had hidden. I gripped the slip of paper in my hand like it was a lifeline, the letters almost burning into my skin. The cafe behind me faded into the night as I jumped into my car, heart racing like a drum. Every light on the street felt like a countdown. Every passing car made me flinch. I couldn't shake the thought of Clara's terrified eyes, the way she'd bolted without looking back. And yet, she'd given me this. This was my chance. The drive to the address was tense. I repeated it to myself over and over. 1427 Willow Creek Drive, Unit 12B. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I could feel the strain in my forearms. I checked the rearview mirror a dozen times, half expecting Harvey, or worse, someone working for him, to be following. The streets were quiet, unnervingly so, and every shadow seemed alive. Finally, I arrived at a dimly lit storage facility. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting long, eerie shadows. I parked and sat for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady my racing heart. My pulse thundered in my ears. This was it. Clara's slip had led me straight to Harvey's hidden world. I walked slowly to Unit 12B. The nameplate read, Thompson, which I knew was one of Harvey's many aliases. I fumbled with the lock, the metal cold and unyielding in my hands. My mind raced with questions. What would I find inside? Proof? Lies? Something that could destroy everything Harvey had built. The door finally clicked open, and I pushed it slowly. The smell of dust and old cardboard hit me immediately. Rows of stacked boxes lined the walls, each labeled meticulously. I felt a flicker of fear, but also determination. I had come too far to back down now. I started sifting through the boxes, pulling out folders, envelopes, and manila files. My hands trembled as I opened the first one. Bank statements, signed documents, receipts. Each piece I scanned made my stomach twist. Marcus's trust fund, it was being funneled into shady deals, offshore accounts, shell companies. My blood ran cold. Harvey had been stealing from Marcus, manipulating his finances without a hint of conscience. I snapped pictures of everything with my phone, hands shaking so badly I had to take multiple shots. Each click was a lifeline, a way to preserve the truth before Harvey or someone tried to erase it. My mind flashed to Marcus, to the future he might never have if I failed. Suddenly a creak echoed through the storage unit. My head whipped around. The sound of boots against concrete made my stomach drop. I froze listening. Another shuffle, faint but deliberate. I wasn't alone. My heart leapt into my throat. Before I could react, a shadow moved behind me. I spun around, but it was too late. The unit door slammed shut with a loud clang, the lock clicking into place. Darkness pressed in around me, heavy and suffocating. Panic clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to breathe. "I know you're in here," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want trouble, I just want the truth." A shadowy figure stepped closer, tall and imposing. I couldn't make out the face, only the outline of a man, calm and deliberate. My stomach dropped. Harvey. It had to be him. "You shouldn't be here, Ray," a cold familiar voice said. "Curiosity can get you killed." I clenched my fists, refusing to show fear. "I'm done hiding. I'm done letting you destroy Marcus's life. I will expose everything. A laugh, low and mocking, echoed through the unit. You think you've won? You haven't even begun. My phone vibrated in my pocket, reminding me I had proof. Every shot I took mattered. I could feel the tension in my chest, the weight of every secret Harvey had tried to hide. But now, with this evidence in my hands, the game had changed. The shadows stopped moving, and I felt the cold air of the storage unit settle around us like a trap. Time stretched. My mind raced. I had to escape, to get this evidence out, to protect Marcus. And somewhere deep down, a spark of determination flared. I would not let Harvey win. Not this time. I whispered under my breath, voice shaking but resolute. I'm coming for the truth, Harvey, and you can't stop me. The shadow in the corner shifted, and my stomach dropped. My heart was hammering in my chest as the figure stepped fully into the dim light. My blood ran cold. It was him. Harvey. His smug grin stretched across his face like he'd been waiting for this moment. Well, Ray Calder, he said, voice dripping with mockery. I should have known you'd follow the breadcrumbs all the way here. I tried to steady my breathing, gripping the files in my trembling hands. Harvey, what are you doing here? Why all this secrecy? He laughed, low and menacing, stepping closer. Secrecy? No, Ray. This is power. And you, my friend, are stepping into a world you barely understand. I felt anger rising, hot and sharp. You've been stealing from Marcus, using his trust fund for your schemes. You're manipulating my son, and I will stop you. His eyes narrowed, amused rather than concerned. Stop me. You think Marcus will ever believe a word you say? He's mine now, Ray. Everything he sees, everything he hears, comes through my filter. And your little memories, your father-son moments, meaningless. He doesn't know you anymore, and frankly, he's starting to hate you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Hate me, my own son. I felt my chest tighten, but I forced myself not to show it. I couldn't let him see my fear. You've also got to understand something, Harvey continued, voice colder now, more dangerous. Sheila, she's mine, loyal to me. Always has been. So whatever pitiful attempts you make to sway your family, to claim them back, they're already lost to me. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words press on me. You can't break him, you won't win, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Oh, I've already won, Ray, Harvey said, stepping closer. And if you push any further, if you insist on digging, Marcus will hate you forever. He'll see you as the villain, the one who ruined his life. You really want that? I could feel a cold sweat running down my spine. My fist tightened around the files. I'm not afraid of you, I said, my voice firm despite the fear curling in my stomach. Harvey smirked, then reached into my pocket. Oh, I think you should be. He pulled out my phone. My heart stopped. All your evidence, all your pictures, gone. He swiped across the screen. My files, my photos of Marcus's trust fund, every document, deleted in seconds. My stomach sank, helplessness washing over me. No, you can't. I just did, Harvey interrupted, leaning in close so I could feel the chill of his presence. And now I'm going to make sure you remember who's in charge. He turned, leaving me there, and slammed the door shut behind him. The lock clicked, the echo reverberated through the small storage unit, the sound like a drumbeat of my humiliation. I was trapped. Alone. Surrounded by secrets I couldn't hold on to, evidence I couldn't use, and Harvey laughing somewhere beyond the door. Hours passed. The dim fluorescent lights flickered above me. I tried the door. Locked. I paced every step loud in the empty unit, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. Anger, fear, despair, they all swirled together, and yet, amid it all, something else started to grow. Determination. I couldn't let Harvey win. Not Marcus, not my dignity, not the truth. I noticed a small vent near the ceiling just big enough to squeeze my hand through. A loose hinge on one of the boxes. My mind raced as I looked for every possible escape. Every failed attempt only made me more resolute. I had survived his threats before. I could survive this. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, I found a small latch on the back of the unit that had loosened. My hands shook as I twisted it. Click. The door rattled. I shoved with all my strength. It gave way. just enough. I slipped through, heart pounding, lungs burning. Outside, the night air hit me like a wave. I fell to my knees gasping, but my eyes burned with rage and clarity. Harvey thought he had me, thought he had broken me, but I was alive, and I was more determined than ever. I whispered into the darkness, almost to myself, "You can lock me in, you can delete your lies, but you can't stop me, Harvey. I will get the truth. And Marcus will know it." After escaping that storage unit, my mind wouldn't stop racing. Every detail of Harvey's smug face, every word he had said replayed like a cruel film in my head. I needed a plan. I couldn't act on anger. It would only ruin me. My first call was to Thomas Greer, my old lawyer friend, the one person I trusted to see through Harvey's lies. "Thomas," I said, my voice tight, "I need your advice. Harvey, he's playing a game, and I don't even know all the rules yet." Thomas was calm, measured, the kind of man who could dissect chaos with precision. "Ray, slow down. We need patience and strategy. Nothing you do should alert him. He's dangerous, resourceful, and he knows you're desperate." I ran a hand through my hair trying to steady my nerves. "I've seen him, Thomas. He's using Marcus's trust fund, controlling him, twisting my son's head. I need to stop him." Thomas's tone sharpened. "Yes, but we do it smartly. We document. We gather proof. We expose him legally, without giving him a chance to retaliate." I nodded, feeling a flicker of hope. Together we spent hours going over every piece of information I had. Claire's confession, the files from the storage unit, every text, every suspicious transaction. We mapped a strategy, step by step, a plan to trap Harvey in the law's net. But even as we strategized, my mind kept drifting to Marcus. The thought of him caught between his father and a man like Harvey made my chest ache. I had to reconnect. I had to remind him who I was, not through lectures or arguments but through gentle moments, the small bridges of trust. The next evening, I invited Marcus for a casual coffee. His expression was guarded, cautious, yet there was a hint of something familiar behind his eyes, a flicker of the boy I remembered. We sat, drank our drinks slowly, and I started talking about fishing trips, about the times he had caught his first bass and proudly held it up like a trophy. At first he barely responded. Then slowly, he began opening up. "Dad, Harvey, he keeps saying things about money, about you," he muttered, eyes darting nervously. "He says, I shouldn't believe you, that you're trying to ruin my life." My heart broke a little, hearing the fear and confusion in my son's voice, but I kept my composure. I leaned forward, keeping my voice calm and steady. "Marcus, I'm not here to hurt you, I'm here to protect you. Everything I'm doing, it's for you. You deserve to know the truth." He hesitated, looking down at his hands. I want to believe you, Dad, but it's hard. He watches everything I do, says I can't talk to you alone." His voice cracked. I reached out and placed a hand over his. "I know, son, I know it's scary, but I promise you, I won't give up, and I will protect you from him. One step at a time." That moment gave me strength. I realized I had a window, a small opportunity to show Marcus the truth without directly confronting Harvey yet. I could gather the evidence, present the facts, and slowly dismantle Harvey's control. Back at my apartment, I called Thomas. "We need a subpoena," I said. "We need to make sure Harvey can't hide anything. We need to expose him completely." Thomas hesitated, cautious. "Ray, are you sure? Filing a subpoena will alert him. And he's not stupid, he might already know what's coming." I clenched my jaw. "I don't care if he knows. I can't wait any longer. Marcus deserves the truth. I deserve justice. We do this." Minutes later, Thomas confirmed the request had been filed. I felt a rush of hope, but also a pang of dread. How could Harvey already know? Was someone tipping him off? My stomach twisted. The game was far from over, and the stakes were higher than ever. I glanced at the phone, thinking about Marcus. I had to move carefully now. Every action, every word, every small decision mattered. Harvey was watching, but I wouldn't let him win. Not this time. I had a plan, evidence, and the faint trust of my son. That was enough to start rebuilding everything he had tried to destroy. I whispered to myself, almost like a promise, "I will bring the truth to light. Marcus will know. Harvey won't get away with this." The night felt heavy, but in that wait, I found determination. I would rebuild my case, my reputation, and most importantly, my bond with my son. The call to appear in court came early that morning. I barely had time to gather my thoughts before I was sitting in the hard wooden pews, my hands clammy and my heart racing. Something in my gut told me this wasn't going to be routine. Something darker was brewing. When the courtroom doors opened, I froze. Sheila walked in poised and composed, but there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before, determination. Not the gentle warmth of the woman I'd once loved, but cold, precise. Harvey was somewhere behind her, of course smirking like he had rehearsed this scene 1,000 times, and then the judge called the case. I rose, trying to mask the pit in my stomach. "Mr. Calder, please approach," the clerk said. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Sheila took the stand. My chest tightened as she began speaking, her voice calm, almost rehearsed. "Your Honor, Ray Calder has been harassing my son. He has been sending him threatening messages and stalking my husband. Marcus has been under immense pressure due to his father's actions." Every word struck me like a knife. Harassment, threats, stalking. The woman I had shared my life with, the mother of my son, was painting me as a villain. Betrayal cut through me like ice. My mind screamed at me to speak, to defend myself, but I held my tongue. The courtroom air was thick with tension. I stole a glance at Marcus. His expression was unreadable. He fiddled with his hands, his face pale, caught between loyalty to his mother and the father he had known. The bond I had fought so hard to rebuild, the trust I had tried to nurture, was slipping through my fingers in front of me. "Sheila," I whispered under my breath, but the words felt hollow. She avoided my gaze, staring straight ahead, as though she didn't even recognize me anymore. The prosecutor leaned in, nodding at Sheila. "Can you give specific examples of these threats or harassment?" Sheila listed them calmly, citing instances that were either exaggerated or taken completely out of context. Every word she spoke felt like a hammer striking down the small bridge I had built with Marcus. My chest ached, my stomach twisted. I wanted to shout, to explain, but the courtroom rules pinned me in place. Harvey's presence was unmistakable. He didn't even try to hide his satisfaction. A slight smirk crossed his face every time Sheila spoke. I realized then that this was orchestrated. Every move, every word had been planned. Harvey had manipulated the situation, and Sheila had fallen in line completely. Marcus looked at his mother, then down at the floor. His fingers trembled as he twisted his watch strap nervously. He looked at me briefly, and I could see the confusion, the fear, the heartbreak mirrored in his eyes. But he didn't speak, he didn't acknowledge me. It was as if I was invisible, a stranger who had suddenly become the enemy. The judge called for a recess. The murmurs of the courtroom rose like a tide. I remained seated, feeling frozen, staring at the polished wood in front of me. Marcus stood silently, refusing to meet my gaze. I wanted to reach out to him, to tell him the truth, but he walked past me with a hollow look in his eyes. I felt my hands clench into fists. The betrayal wasn't just from Sheila, it was from Harvey, from the lies, from the way my own family had been weaponized against me. I thought back to all the dinners, the calls, the moments I had tried to be present for Marcus. All of that seemed meaningless now. Thomas leaned over my shoulder, whispering, "Ray, stay calm, this isn't over. The truth has a way of coming out even if it's not today." I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my shaking body. I had to keep my focus. This betrayal stung, yes, it cut deep, but it wouldn't destroy me. I had Marcus's trust, even if he didn't see it yet, and I had the evidence to fight back. I looked at Sheila one last time before leaving the courtroom. The woman I had loved, the mother of my son, had become a pawn in Harvey's game. My heart ached, but beneath the pain, a spark of determination ignited. I would not let this betrayal define the story. As the doors closed behind us, I whispered to myself, "This isn't the end, Marcus. I will show you the truth. I promise you that." The courthouse steps felt colder than usual. I stood there, my heart hammering, watching Marcus shift uneasily under the glare of the morning sun. People bustled around us, but it felt like we were alone, just him and me, with the tension between us thick enough to choke on. "Marcus, please," I said, my voice low but urgent. "I just need one honest conversation. One. That's all." He hesitated. His fingers fidgeted with the strap of his backpack, his eyes darting everywhere except mine. I could see the war raging behind his gaze, the part of him that wanted to trust me and the part that had been carefully poisoned by Harvey's lies. After what felt like forever, he finally nodded. Fine, but just a few minutes. Relief hit me, but I didn't let it show. I had to tread carefully. One wrong word, one wrong look, and I could lose him again. I led him to a quiet corner of the courthouse garden, away from the noise, the glares, and the whispers. The sunlight filtered through the trees, but even that warmth didn't reach the cold pit in my chest. "Do you remember the fishing trip at Lake Willow?" I asked, trying to start with something safe. "You were 8. You caught that huge bass, and you yelled so loud I thought the neighbors would call the cops." Marcus's lips twitched. It was the smallest flicker of a smile, but it was there. I pressed on gently, weaving in memories only he and I could know, the time we stayed up late building that cardboard castle, how he insisted I read the last chapter first so he could see how it ended, the tiny secret handshake we'd invented in the living room. He listened. I could see the walls slowly tremble. Yet every time I tried to look into his eyes, he darted away, retreating behind the armor Harvey had built around him. "Dad, I remember, but I don't know what's true anymore." "Harvey says," "Marcus," I interrupted softly, trying to hold back the frustration and the ache. "Harvey has been lying to you. Everything he's told you about me, it's twisted, it's half-truths and lies mixed together to make you doubt me." He looked down, tugging nervously at his sleeve. "But what if you're wrong? What if everything you say is just your version?" My chest tightened. I reached out, but he flinched slightly. I knew it wasn't fear of me. It was fear of disappointment, fear of being manipulated, fear of being proven wrong again. I swallowed hard. "I swear to you, Marcus, I will prove it. I've got the evidence. You just have to trust me long enough to see it." He nodded slowly, almost imperceptibly. And then he whispered words that cut straight through me. "If you're wrong, Dad, I can't forgive you." The weight of his words sank deep. I wanted to pull him into my arms, to promise him that I wouldn't fail him again. But the unease didn't leave me. Something in the way he said it, a tiny hesitation, made me suspicious. I had fought too long, seen too much manipulation to ignore the signs. Later that evening, I discovered the truth. The moment I thought we had a sliver of progress, Marcus had quietly hit record on his phone. Every word, every memory I shared, every promise I made, sent straight to Harvey. I couldn't believe it, my own son, unknowingly, or maybe semi-willingly, feeding the enemy. I clenched my fists, heart pounding with a mix of anger, fear, and heartbreak, but underneath it all a fire ignited. This wasn't the end. Harvey may have a recording, he may have sowed doubt, but I still had the truth, still had the evidence, and still had the fight inside me. Marcus would see it, he had to. I looked up at the sky, taking a shaky breath. "This isn't over, Marcus," I muttered to myself, silently promising that no lie, no recording, no manipulation would keep me from showing him the truth. Not ever. I barely had a moment to process Marcus secretly sending that recording to Harvey when my phone buzzed again. The name flashing on the screen made my stomach twist. "Clara Barnes," I answered cautiously. "Clara." My voice was calm, but my heart raced. "Mr. Calder, it's too much now," she said, her voice trembling. "I can't stay silent anymore. Harvey, he's gone too far. You need to know the truth." I leaned back against the wall outside the courthouse, gripping the phone tight. My mind raced. Clara had helped me before, reluctantly, scared of her father's wrath. But now, desperation in her voice meant something had changed. "Clara, tell me everything," I urged, trying to keep my voice steady. She took a shaky breath. "Harvey, he's not working alone. There's someone else. Someone he trusts. Allison Kane. She controls the accounts, the offshore accounts. That's where Marcus's trust fund is going." My stomach dropped. Offshore accounts? That meant Harvey was laundering Marcus's money, hiding it from everyone. My blood boiled at the thought. "Do you have proof?" I asked, trying not to let my anger overtake me. "Yes," she whispered. I have the contracts, signed by Allison and Harvey, all of it. I can show you. But you have to be careful. Allison, she's dangerous. She wouldn't think twice about silencing you." I froze for a moment, absorbing her words. Dangerous, silencing me. This wasn't just a family war anymore. This was bigger, darker, and much more ruthless than I had imagined. But finally, I could see a path. Clara continued, her voice low. Meet me tonight at my apartment. I'll bring everything. But Mr. Calder, you have to promise me. No one else can know. Not Marcus, not Thomas, no one. If Allison finds out you have this, she'll come for you. I swallowed hard. I wanted to argue, to demand more details, but I knew she was right. This had to be handled with precision. I understand, I said quietly. I'll be there. And Clara, thank you. You've just given me the missing piece I've been looking for. She sounded relieved, but the fear in her voice lingered even after she hung up. I sank into a nearby bench, running my hands over my face. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. We finally had a lead that could expose Harvey completely. And now Allison. But alongside hope, there was fear. Allison Kane sounded cold, powerful, untouchable. I thought about Marcus, about how manipulated he had already been. What if Allison discovered our plans? What if she decided to act before we could? I clenched my fists, determination burning through the fear. I had come too far to let Harvey, or anyone else, win. Marcus deserved the truth. I deserved a chance to fight back. And with Clara finally stepping forward, I knew we had the key to unlock everything. I pictured Allison Kane's name in my mind, the final piece of the puzzle, the shadow behind Harvey's schemes. I could feel her influence reaching into every corner of Marcus's life. But now, with proof in hand, we could turn the tables. I took a deep breath, thinking ahead to tonight. Clara's apartment would be our chance to see the contracts, to finally understand the scale of Harvey and Allison's deception. Every careful step we took from here on would have to be perfect. One misstep, and we could lose everything. And then Clara's warning echoed in my mind again. She's dangerous. She may silence you next. I looked at my hands, feeling the weight of responsibility. Protect Marcus. Expose Harvey. Take down Allison. Keep us both safe. This was no longer just a battle to reclaim my son's trust. It was a fight to survive, and finally I had an ally I could count on. Even if the shadows were closing in around us. I sat at the kitchen table, stacks of papers and folders spread in front of me. Thomas was on the phone again, quietly arguing with someone on the other end, and I could feel the tension pressing down on me like a heavy weight. Clara's documents lay open between us. Contracts, bank statements, signed letters. Each one was a small nail in Harvey and Allison's coffin. But it wasn't enough to act recklessly. One wrong move, one leak, and we could lose everything. Ray, Thomas said, his voice calm but firm, we need to be surgical. Allison Kane is smart, ruthless, and she controls the money. If she smells a threat, she'll bury it, and us along with it. I nodded, my hands gripping the edge of the table. I could feel the guilt creeping in. Marcus was stuck in the middle of all this. My son was being used as a pawn by people I once trusted would protect him. And now I was dragging him further into danger. I know, I said quietly. I need him to understand. I can't let him drift further into Harvey's lies. But Thomas, every time I try to get closer, I feel like I'm walking on a tightrope over a pit. Thomas sighed. You're right to be careful, but we have something they don't. Proof. And timing. That's our leverage. If we plan this right, we can expose Allison's role without her seeing it coming. I leaned back, thinking about Marcus. His last call had been short, hesitant. Dad, Sheila's been pressuring me. She says I should cut ties with you. She says you're only making things worse. His voice trembled, betraying confusion and fear. My chest tightened. My boy, my son, and the thought that he might believe Harvey and Sheila over me made my stomach twist. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep my voice steady when I called him back. Marcus, I said gently, please, wait. Just wait for the truth. Don't make any decisions yet. I promise you, it's coming. I will make sure you see everything. You'll know what really happened, and then you can decide for yourself. There was silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing, conflicted, torn between the mother who raised him and the father he wanted to trust. Finally he whispered, okay, I'll wait. But Dad, I hope you're right. Hanging up, I felt the weight of responsibility more than ever. Marcus's trust was fragile, and Harvey's influence was stronger than I had realized. Every move I made had to be precise. Thomas cleared his throat and looked at me seriously. Ray, the moment we reveal Allison's involvement, Harvey will fight back. He'll use every connection, every loophole, every ounce of power he has to discredit you. We can't let him get the upper hand. I nodded again, feeling the tension coil tight in my chest. I had already been through humiliation, betrayal, and manipulation, but I refused to be scared into inaction. Not now, not when Marcus's future was on the line. And then my phone buzzed. The name flashing on the screen made my blood run cold. Allison Kane. I answered cautiously, my hand shaking. Allison? Her voice was sharp, confident, and cold. Ray Calder. I know what you're doing. I know about Clara, about the documents. Meet me tonight, alone. I want to talk. I froze, a chill running down my spine. This was it, the moment I had been preparing for. The trap was closing, but now the prey and the predator were about to face each other directly. I looked at Thomas, his expression unreadable. She's coming for us, I said. Thomas nodded, and we have to be ready. Every word, every step, it has to count. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. This was the turning point. Allison Kane had just thrown down the gauntlet. And I wasn't backing down. Tonight, everything could change. Tonight we either expose the truth or risk losing it all. And Marcus, my son, had to be protected through it all. The trap was set. The next move was mine. I parked outside the hotel, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I could feel my heart thumping in my chest. Allison Kane had called, calm, sharp, and dangerous. She wanted to meet me, alone, in a luxury suite on the 20th floor. I took a deep breath and reminded myself I was ready for this. I had to be. For Marcus, for the truth. The elevator ride felt endless. My mind raced with possibilities. Was she going to offer a deal, threaten me further, or she try to intimidate me into silence? The door opened. Allison stood there, flawless in a tailored suit, her sharp eyes sizing me up immediately. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ray Calder, she said, voice smooth, controlled. I was wondering when you'd show up. I forced a steady smile. Allison. You wanted to talk. She gestured for me to sit. I hesitated but followed. The suite was lavish marble floors, city lights glittering through the windows, but I barely noticed. My focus was on her, on every word, every move. I'll get straight to the point, Allison said, sliding a folder across the table. Walk away, leave Harvey, leave Marcus, leave the case. Take this. She tapped the folder. It's a substantial sum, enough to start over. Quietly, nobody gets hurt, nobody knows. I felt my stomach twist. Bribery. That's all this was. She thought money could erase what they had done to my family. I glanced at her, my hands tightening into fists under the table. I can't, I said, voice low but firm. I can't walk away, not now, not with Marcus at stake. Her eyes narrowed. Oh, you can. But if you refuse, your son will lose everything. I mean everything, Ray. His trust fund, opportunities, his future. All of it. I froze. My mind flashed to Marcus, his face, his hesitant calls, the fear in his eyes when Harvey pressured him. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my panic from showing. All the judges, the officials, they answer to me, she continued, her voice cold and steady. Every step you take, every move you make, it's all being watched. You can try to fight, but you'll be crushed. And Marcus, he already belongs to Harvey's world. That's the reality. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp. This wasn't just corruption. It was a trap, a web of control so deep I hadn't even imagined. But I couldn't show fear. I couldn't let her see that she was rattling me. I took a deep breath. Then I guess you're underestimating me, I said quietly. I reached into my jacket, pressing the small recorder I had smuggled in. Every word she said, every threat, every smug warning recorded. She had no idea. Allison's lips curled into a smirk, brave or foolish. Only time will tell which. I leaned back, keeping my expression calm. I've already seen the truth, Allison, and I'm not turning away from it. Not for money, not for threats, not for anything you can throw at me. Her smile faltered, just slightly. For the first time, I sensed a flicker of irritation, but she recovered immediately. Voice smooth again. Be careful, Ray. Every action has consequences. You think you're ready for this, but you have no idea how deep it goes. One mistake, one slip, and it's over. I didn't flinch. My hands were steady, my mind focused. Every threat she made, every word of warning, was now evidence. Proof, a weapon in my hands that Harvey and Allison couldn't erase. As I left the suite, I felt a mix of adrenaline and fear. This meeting was dangerous, yes, but it also gave me leverage I'd never had before. Every piece of the puzzle was coming together. Harvey, Allison, their lies, their corruption, it all had a crack now, and I was ready to pry it open. Marcus's future. My son's trust. My family. I wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The city lights flashed outside the hotel window as I walked to my car. The storm wasn't over, but the tide was starting to turn, and this time, I would make sure it turned in my favor. The morning of the hearing, I felt my stomach twist into knots. Today was the day I had waited for, the day I would finally confront Harvey and Allison in court. I checked my phone one last time. The recording was secure. Every word Allison had said, every threat, every smug warning, it was all there. Evidence that could finally bring the truth to light. Thomas and I arrived early. The courthouse was buzzing with energy, lawyers and clients moving in every direction, but I barely noticed anyone around me. My focus was on the courtroom, on the people I had to face. When the session began, I felt my heart pound in my chest. Harvey sat across from me, his smirk in place, but I could see the tension in his hands. Allison sat beside him, equally composed, but her eyes flicked nervously toward the judge. Thomas stood and began presenting our case. Step by step, we laid out the evidence, the documents Clara had provided, the financial trails, and finally, the recording. My hands were shaking slightly as Thomas played it in court. Allison's voice echoed through the room, cold, threatening, and full of control. If you refuse, Marcus will lose everything. I watched Harvey's face. He went pale. His smug demeanor faltered. He glanced at Allison, panic flashing in his eyes. They hadn't expected this. Not here, not now. The recording left them without words, scrambling for explanations, fumbling through rehearsed lies. Then Clara stood. She walked up to the stand, her hands trembling, but her voice clear. Harvey forced me to manipulate my father, she said. I sent the messages, and I know he's been hiding things from Marcus. Allison Kane helped him. This is all true. I'm telling the truth now. The courtroom went quiet. I could feel my chest tighten as I listened. Clara's bravery filled the room with a raw energy. Harvey shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Allison's jaw tightened. They knew they were trapped. Then Sheila was called to the stand. My heart sank, remembering the day she testified against me. But this time, she was different. Her voice shook as she spoke, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know, Harvey. He manipulated me. I didn't see the truth. I'm so sorry, Ray. I was blind. I watched Marcus, sitting in the gallery, his eyes wide and filled with shock. He looked between us, between the lies and the truth, realizing finally who had been honest with him all along. The weight of his understanding hung heavy in the room. I could see the betrayal, the confusion, the pain on his face, but also the first flicker of clarity. The judge leaned forward, her expression serious. Based on the evidence presented, I am ordering a full investigation into the dealings of Harvey Whitman and Allison Kane. This includes financial transactions, manipulation of family members, and potential influence over judicial matters. A hush fell over the courtroom. Harvey and Allison exchanged anxious glances. Their world, carefully controlled for years, was beginning to crumble. I could feel a mixture of relief and tension in my chest. The truth was out, but the battle wasn't entirely over yet. I sat back, exhaling slowly, my hands finally relaxing. Marcus reached out, gripping my hand briefly. The connection was small, but it meant everything. He had seen the truth, and now he could start to process it. Even as the investigation was ordered, the judge added one last note. The verdict is delayed pending further review. The words left everyone on edge. No one knew how long the process would take, and the tension in the room was almost unbearable. But for the first time, I felt hope. Real hope. The lies were unraveling. The people who had tried to destroy my family were exposed. I looked at Marcus again. He was silent, but his eyes spoke volumes. I knew the road ahead was still uncertain, but the truth had finally been revealed. The reckoning had begun, and justice, real justice, was within reach. Weeks passed, and every day felt like an eternity. I kept checking the court updates, waiting, hoping, and dreading the final outcome. The tension that had gripped my chest since the start of this nightmare didn't leave easily. But finally the news arrived. Harvey Whitman and Allison Kane had been convicted of fraud, coercion, and manipulating Marcus's trust fund. Justice, at last, had been served. I remember sitting alone in my apartment when I read the verdict. My hands were trembling. Relief washed over me, but it was mingled with exhaustion. So much had happened. So much had been lost and almost destroyed. But finally the scales had tipped back toward truth. Sheila reached out after the verdict. Her voice was trembling when she spoke, thick with tears. "Ray, I'm so sorry. I was blinded. Harvey controlled everything. I didn't see the truth." I could hear the shame and regret in her voice. I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. The woman I had loved, the mother of my son, had been manipulated, but now she was finally honest with herself and with me. The moment I had waited for the longest had finally arrived. Marcus, my boy. He approached me slowly, hesitant, unsure if I would still be the same man in his eyes. But when he finally wrapped his arms around me, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. He whispered, "I get it now. I know who really stood by me." My heart ached with a mix of sorrow for the time lost and joy for the bond slowly being rebuilt. We spent that evening together quietly, just the two of us. We didn't need words for everything. Sometimes, a look, a small smile, a gentle pat on the back, said more than any conversation could. I realized that even after the darkest times, moments like these made the struggle worthwhile. I was reclaiming my dignity, my life, and most importantly, my connection with Marcus. Clara contacted me too, before leaving town. She sounded lighter, freer, and almost unrecognizable compared to the frightened girl I had first met. "Thank you, Ray," she said, voice soft but firm. "You didn't just fight for yourself, you freed me from him. I can finally live my own life." Hearing her words, I felt a quiet sense of pride. I had helped someone escape a prison of manipulation and fear, just like I had been trying to protect Marcus from the same. As I stood on the balcony of my apartment that evening, looking at the city lights, I thought about everything that had happened. Betrayal cuts deep, I realized. It leaves scars that don't fade overnight. But truth always rises. No matter how far lies spread, no matter how strong the manipulation, the truth finds a way to the surface. That thought gave me strength I hadn't felt in months. I turned to Marcus, who was sitting beside me, quietly sketching in his notebook. "You know," I said, keeping my voice low, reflective, "family can be stolen, twisted, poisoned, but only if we let lies win." He looked up at me, eyes wide. "Didn't let them, Dad," he replied softly. A small proud smile crossed my face. "I didn't either," I said. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I felt whole again. The nightmare was over. We had survived. We had reclaimed what was ours, not just the villa, not just the money, but our lives, our trust, and our bond as father and son. Life wasn't perfect. We had lost time, and the wounds were real, but we were together. And sometimes that's enough. I knew Harvey and Allison's punishment wouldn't erase the pain, but it had restored justice and balance, and sometimes, that was the most powerful form of revenge. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the city. I held Marcus close, letting him lean on me, feeling the warmth and security of our renewed bond. We had faced lies, betrayal, and manipulation, and we had come out stronger. Truth had prevailed, and so had we. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments.